If you've ever told yourself it's too late to start anything new, then I want you to stay with me for the next few minutes. Because exactly 1 year ago today, as I record this, I set up this YouTube channel. 16th of June, 2025. I had not long celebrated my 57th birthday. I had no idea how any of this worked. And in the last 12 months, over 1 million people have watched what I created. And I'm not telling you that to impress you. I'm telling you that because I want you to understand what's possible when you start anyway. 1 year, that's what we're marking today. Here's what 1 year looked like in numbers. 75 uploads, mostly long form videos, 22.7 thousand subscribers, well over 1 million views, and nearly 75,000 hours of people's time watching what I make. When I say that last number out loud, I honestly can't believe it. Because a year ago I had none of this. Now I could make this video entirely about the numbers, but if you've been watching me for a while, you might know already that that's not what interests me. What interests me is what this year has taught me, because I think some of it could well apply to you, wherever you are right now in your own working life, and regardless of YouTube, whatever it is you do for a career. So here's what I want to share with you today. 3 things I've learned in 1 year of starting over at 57. One of them I got completely wrong. One of them was a genuine surprise. And one of them I think is the most important thing I think I could say to anyone standing at the beginning of something new. Before I get into the 3 things, I quickly want to say something important, because I think a lot of you are doing exactly what I was doing for years before I started this channel. You're waiting till you feel more ready, waiting till you've got more qualifications, more certainty, a clearer plan, telling yourself you'll start when the moment is right. But I want to tell you something that I've learned. That moment doesn't arrive. I waited for it for years. It never came. What came instead was a Monday morning when I was tired of waiting and I just pressed record anyway. So if waiting has been your strategy so far, this video is for you. What I learned this year only happened because I stopped waiting. If you're new here, my name's Lucy and I'm so glad that you found the channel. I spent 30 years in leadership roles in the charity and commercial sectors, leading teams, making change happen. And these days I make videos and I work as an executive coach, trying to help people navigate the harder parts of working life. If that's something you need right now, please do subscribe. I'm here every Wednesday. The first thing I learned, and I want to say this really clearly, is that starting doesn't require certainty. When I set up this channel, I knew almost nothing about how YouTube worked. I didn't know about algorithms or thumbnails or titles. I didn't know any of the language that goes with all of this. I had a phone and decades of experience, but I had absolutely no idea if anybody would want to listen to what I had to say. What I knew, and pretty much the only thing I knew, was that a lot of the people I was talking to at the time were struggling with issues in the workplace that I recognised, things I'd seen in boardrooms and team meetings and exit interviews over the years. And I thought to myself, somebody really needs to say some of this out loud. Here's what I want to ask you. How many things have you not started because you didn't feel ready? Because what I've learned is readiness is mostly a story that we tell ourselves to stay safe. The camera doesn't care whether you're ready, or in my case, the back of my iPhone. The blank screen doesn't care if you're ready. And the people who need what you know, they definitely don't care. They just need someone to show up and share their knowledge. I pressed record before I felt ready. And a year later, I'm so glad I did. So here's the one thing I'd ask you to do this week. Not start a YouTube channel unless you want to. Just write down one thing you know from your own experience that someone 5 years behind you or 10 years behind you doesn't know yet. That's it. That's the whole exercise. You don't have to do anything with it yet. You just have to see it written down. The second thing I want to share is something that I got completely wrong. And I want to be honest about this because I think it matters. I thought the hardest part of starting over at 57 would be the learning curve, the technology, the language, the editing skills I most certainly didn't have. And yes, there was a learning curve, and there still is, but that wasn't the hardest part. The hardest part was making up my mind that my experience had value. When you've spent 30 years doing something, there's a peculiar thing that happens. That knowledge becomes invisible to you. It stops feeling like expertise and just becomes like something you know. It's easy to forget that a 35-year-old manager drowning in a toxic workplace doesn't know what you know, that a 50-year-old professional who's just been made redundant and is terrified of starting again hasn't necessarily had 3 decades to learn what you've learned. I kept second-guessing myself in the early months. Who am I to talk about this? Before every new video, I did days of research to put together every new script. I kept telling myself there are younger people, there are people with more qualifications. But then the comments started coming in, and the private messages and the emails. People telling me that they watched my video in the middle of the night because they couldn't sleep. People telling me that they'd been in that toxic job for years and didn't have a name to describe what they were going through until they watched my channel. That's when I understood what I'd got wrong, that it was never about credentials. It was about recognition. The people watching my videos needed someone who'd been in a room similar to the one that they were in. Someone who'd sat across the table from a bully and navigated that situation and survived. Someone who knew what it felt like to leave a job you loved because the atmosphere had become unbearable. I started to realise that 30 years didn't make me a has-been. It didn't make me past it. 30 years was the whole point. I want to stop here for a moment and tell you about a week. It was probably about 10 weeks in to this YouTube adventure of mine, which still feels quite new. And I'd made a video which I'd really worked hard on. I'd researched all the content, I drafted and redrafted the script, and I put it together. By then I was getting a bit better at editing, and I put it out, and it only got a handful of views. And to be honest, that was what happened in the early days. I started publishing videos in early July, and I didn't start getting views until mid-October time. And at the time it was tough. I remember sitting at my desk and I hadn't told any of my friends much about what I was doing. And I started to think, well, maybe this is a bit of a mistake. Maybe it's a bit of a waste of time. Maybe 57 was too old to be starting something new like this. Maybe this was the world's way of telling me so. I'd promised myself I would make 10 videos in 10 weeks. So I'd give myself the summer, and I really wasn't getting very many views at all, a handful on my videos, no comments. So it's very hard to know if anyone was watching them, if they meant anything to anybody. I genuinely considered stopping, but something kept me going. I didn't stop, and I kept on putting out a video every week. Not long later, in October 2025, I made a series of 3 videos about toxic workplaces. You can see them if you like, they're still on the channel. And those really saw an uptick in views, and I realised I was onto something, that my videos were really striking a chord with people, and the comments that came back were very moving. And it was from there that I really started to believe in what I was doing. And what changed was, by getting comments back, I started to see the direction that the channel could take, and I started to have more confidence about what I was doing. And then over Christmas was when things really took off, and I made a video about bullying, and I made a video about when you dread going back to work after the holidays. And those videos got thousands of views and really turned up the dial for the channel. I'm not sharing that because the numbers are the point. I'm sharing that because the distance between giving up and success is often quite small. I could very easily, if I look back in September time, at the end of that 10 video period, I could have very easily decided this isn't working. I'm wasting my time. And I didn't. Something kept me going. I think I just knew that I just knew that there was a place in the world for what I was trying to say, and that maybe some people would need to hear what I was trying to say. And so I kept going, and I'm really glad I did. So what I want to say is this, that if you're in a low point right now, a low point in your career, a low point in a transition, something new that you've started isn't going the way that you'd hoped, keep going. I want you to hear that. Don't quit in the low point. It's the people who make it are the ones that keep going. If any of this is striking a chord with you, maybe you're trying to figure out where next with your career, maybe you'd be interested in my workbook, Should I Stay or Should I Go? It's a structured way to help you think about where you are now and where you want to go next. The link is in the description. The third thing, and this is the thing that I genuinely didn't see coming, is about community. When I left my last role, I left a lot of things behind. I left behind being part of a team. And there's something disorientating about going from a high level of connection with other people, being surrounded by them every single day, to sitting in a room on your own, talking to the back of your phone. I don't think I registered how isolated I felt. Not fully anyway. I didn't exactly feel lonely, but I did feel untethered, like I'd stepped out of one world and I wasn't sure what world I was going to end up in next. And then something started happening in the comments that I wasn't prepared for. People weren't just watching and moving on. They weren't just scrolling past. They were sharing their stories. They were talking to each other. They were responding to each other's comments. A woman who'd left a toxic job would write something vulnerable, and 150 people would like that comment, and 20 other people would share their stories too. Strangers would reply with recognition and kindness and warmth. A senior leader who felt completely alone in their situation would write, "I didn't know that other people felt this way too." This channel became a space, not just a place to watch videos, but a space where people recognise themselves in each other. And what that has taught me in year one, that people in these difficult situations need support from each other. They don't just need information, they don't just need training or frameworks, they need community. That knowledge that you're not the only one, that knowledge that what you're experiencing actually has a name, and that there are people who understand because they've lived it too. So thinking about where learning that is taking me, year one has pointed me somewhere I didn't entirely expect when I started. I'm now exploring what it would look like to build something more intentional around that, a smaller, more private space where people can come together and share their experiences, somewhere where the conversation can go deeper, where people who are navigating crossroads can find each other and share, and where I can offer more than a 12-minute video can allow. It's early days, I don't have the answers yet, but I'd love to know what you think. If it's something that could potentially interest you, then look out for the announcement. And I want to say something to you directly for trusting me with your stories, for turning up week after week, for all the comments and messages that remind me why this work matters. So here's what I want to leave you with, particularly if you're watching this at a moment when you're transitioning from one part of your career to the next part. Whether you're thinking about leaving a job, starting something new, navigating a difficult workplace, or simply reflecting on what you want the next phase of your working life to have in it, I want you to hear this. You don't have to have it all figured out before you begin. You don't have to feel ready. You don't have to be younger or more qualified or further along. What you've lived through and your unique perspective on it is exactly what someone else needs to hear. The decade you've spent in your field, the experiences that felt like failures, the things you wish someone had told you, that's not baggage, that's the value. A year ago, I started something with no certainty of where it would go. And I have learned more about this work, about the people I get to serve, and about myself than I ever thought possible. And I think that's true of most things that are worth starting. The mantra of this channel, and the thing I believe most deeply after 30 years of working life, is that work should lift us up, it shouldn't be wearing us down. So if your work is wearing you down, then I hope something in this video has been helpful. And if you're standing at the beginning of something new, you've got this, and I wish you all the best. Subscribe if you haven't already. I'm here every Wednesday with new uploads. And drop a comment. I'd love to know which of the 3 things I've shared in today's video resonated with you the most. Thank you so much for being here. Take very good care of yourself, and I wish you all the very best for the future, and see you next time.